So for those of you who don't know, I am Canadian.
The Canadians, they walk among us.
I live in Toronto currently, but I've lived in a few places around the country. And one part of our national identity is being proud of our country while also being a little embarrassed about how we think the rest of the world sees us, or more specifically, how we think Americans see us. Something that can be seen here in this old commercial for Terrible Beer, a video that our friends from high school still regularly post on Facebook.
And I pronounce it about, not a boot. I can proudly sew my country's flag on my backpack. I believe in peacekeeping, not policing. Diversity, not assimilation. And that the beaver is a truly proud and noble animal. A toque is a hat. A Chesterfield is a coach. And it is pronounced Zed, not Z-Z.
I'll tell you another thing, that beer sucks.
Another example of this is a segment that they used to have on a long-running Canadian comedy show called This Hour Has 22 Minutes. I have friends who have written for the show, so all I will say is that it's very funny and very Canadian.
I'm from Canada.
Cool.
We're with a Canadian comedy show.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah. So, kind of here to make fun of you.
Nice.
The segment was called Talking to Americans, where one of the correspondents, Rick Mercer, would go to the States and ask questions about Canada.
Do you think that America should be bombing Saskatchewan?
Absolutely.
Absolutely?
Yeah.
What about ground forces? Do you think ground forces should be sent into Saskatchewan? That might be safer?
That's what they're going to have to do. That's what they're going to have to do.
So bomb Saskatchewan?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Have a good day.
Or get them to congratulate us on our accomplishments.
Congratulations, Canada, on getting a second area code.
Congratulations, Canada,
on getting a volunteer fire station.
Congratulations, Canada, on getting grade 9.
Congratulations, Canada, on getting FM radio.
Congratulations, Canada, for legalizing VCRs.
This style of man-on-the-street comedy isn't just meant to exploit a rivalry that only one side knows about. It's a common late-night trope as well, like in Jay Leno's classic jaywalking segments.
The largest country in South America.
In South America, Africa?
Our galaxy called.
I am...
It's also a candy bar.
Mars.
I don't remember. Okay, let me give you a hint. It's the name of a candy bar. Babe Ruth.
What once divided East Berlin and West Berlin?
The Great Wall of China.
The Great Wall of China. Good.
Or when Jimmy Kimmel finds out if people know about things.
So, to find out, this afternoon, we sent a team out to the street to ask pedestrians to name a book. Any book.
Can you name a book?
No. Do magazines count?
No, those wouldn't be books.
That's correct.
Just as sure as my favorite book is
Magazines!
All these shows rely heavily on editing out the right answers and the fact that it's harder to recall things when the pressure is on. I know a fair amount about TV and movies, and I know the names of a lot of actors and directors, but if I'm in a group of people and I have any social anxiety, I will forget a name mid-sentence.
Citizen Kane.
Citizen Kane.
Psycho.
No.
It's Psycho.
No, it isn't Psycho.
It's Psycho.
No, it is Psycho. Is this about a motel owner who's crazy and kills a woman in a shower?
No, I just told you. It's about this newspaper tycoon. He had a sled named Rosebud, and they're all trying
Then
to
I guess it wasn't Psycho, was it?
Call a single woman's name. We like these shows because we like to feel superior. And we find it really funny when someone doesn't know something that to us seems like common sense.
Uganda. I don't know. Australia? I don't know. Is that a country? Something. That's America.
The fact is, we all have gaps in our knowledge. We all have topics we know nothing about. And also, there are some things that no human on Earth knows the answer to. And that's okay. Because instead of making up things like myths or religions to explain the things we don't understand, it's okay to say things like, I don't know that. Let's find out. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for liking and commenting and subscribing and hitting that bell icon and all those things that help out the channel. And you're all wonderful, and I appreciate you, and thank you. Let's take a look at this pastor who totally didn't make up this story about a time he was asked to speak at what he called an atheistic society at a university.
So I get up on stage and there's boos and hisses and all these sorts of things, and I come up the front and I just said to the guy, I said, listen, you spoke so eloquently. I said, come and join me on stage. So he came and joined me at the podium at the front there, and I said, you believe there is no God? He said, there is no God. You cannot be a rational person and believe there is a God. I said, okay, help me out with this. I want to show you something. And I drew a circle on a whiteboard like this. I said, this circle represents knowledge. Everything that could ever be known about any subject fits in there. All the sciences, all the arts. You're an intelligent man. You study at this university. How much do you know of everything that could possibly be known? So he took a pen and he drew that and he went, I reckon I know this much. I said, wow, you're intelligent. He said, yeah, I am. I said, that's brilliant. I said, so that's what you do know? He said, yes. I said, and that's what you don't know? He said, yes. But this does exist, you just haven't discovered it yet. Yes. Therefore, could God not exist in a dimension that you haven't yet discovered? Answer, yes. Therefore, sir, I would suggest you're not an atheist, you're an agnostic and one step closer to knowing my Jesus.
I don't know who I like better, the guy who was completely unimpressed or the guy who was trying his hardest to look impressed.
Look at the totality of all knowledge, all scientific facts, everything, and we were to be able to draw a circle that would represent it. It would look something like this, broad and expansive and large. And yet it is that if you were to draw a circle of everything that you know, every experience, every scientific fact that you've ever learned, whether in school or study, it would probably look something more like this. Now, don't you think it's ironic that there's people that have lived in this little circle their entire life that are trying to claim that there's no God that exists outside of their knowledge? Therefore, because they've never experienced him, he doesn't exist.
By that logic, there is a lot that could exist. Horses with butterfly wings, an elf that delivers chicken McNuggets to puppies, and a good odd-numbered Star Trek movie. It's because I heard there's no good odd-numbered Star Trek movies, and rule of threes. But where do we get our knowledge in the first place? How do we know something is true?
How do you know and have certainty about something? A truth claim, knowledge claim. How do you know? And the answer is, I told you.
Reliable sources? Peer-reviewed articles? Scientific consensus?
God said so. Because God says.
Oh.
Now, watch this. We have a distinct revelational epistemology, though, as Christians, and this is what you have to get. There are other religions in the world that also have revelational epistemology, but ours is distinct in that it is a revelational epistemology from the triune God of the Bible.
Oh yeah, that guy, he never got anything wrong. Well, except in the Bible when he said he regretted creating man. That was a bit of an oops.
And he speaks revelationally, this is important, not simply privately. That's important. This isn't a private, secret knowledge given to an individual, revealed to that one individual. The revelation of God in Scripture is broadcast throughout the earth. It is at this very moment. It is covering every inch of God's universe. It is revelational epistemology that gets through to every single creature under heaven.
Which is why, historically, when Christians sent out missionaries to even the most remote places, everyone already knew about Jesus because Jesus already told them.
Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost are the one God. The rest are just false idols.
What facts about reality that you and I agree are real facts about the way the world is does your worldview account for, but my Christianity doesn't account for, or at least doesn't account for well? And for those of you that would point out atheism isn't a worldview, I'm talking about you, your worldview that includes atheism.
This is such a telling question here.
I can't think of any. Christianity accounts for evil, suffering, the existence of other religions, including supernatural events in those other religions, science, and differences among different denominations of Christianity. But I can think of many things that the most common worldviews that include atheism don't answer as well as I think Christianity does. Like universal supernatural claims, universal religious experiences, free will, morality, near-death experiences, beauty, the rapid expansion of the early church, the events surrounding the life and death of Jesus of Nazareth, and our shared longing for purpose and meaning.
First of all, I'll try to answer the things my worldview accounts for.
Christianity accounts for evil, suffering.
Christianity barely accounts for evil and suffering. Yeah, there's the fall and there's free will, but they also say they have a all-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving God, which doesn't make sense when evil exists. And in my worldview, and people who kind of agree with me in some ways, say it's because people can be garbage sometimes.
So chillingly evil.
The existence of other religions.
Because people who didn't invent your religion also wanted to believe that they had figured everything out and also wanted to make up the answers instead of finding the answers.
Including supernatural events in those other religions.
The supernatural events you speak of are the same as your religion. There are a number of reasons. People being susceptible to suggestion, groupthink, emotions getting in the way of logic, hallucinations from lack of sleep, lack of food, or from substances. Con men exist. There's a number of reasons that we can account for it.
Science.
I don't know how I'm supposed to account for science. It's like a way to see the world and study the world. So I don't know how I'm supposed to account for it.
And differences among different denominations of Christianity.
Humans have a hard time agreeing on things. And then, there's more. He rattles off more. But even if I didn't have a single answer for him, that does not automatically make his worldview correct. If I'm on a game show and they ask me what the capital of Ohio is, and I say, I don't know, and the other contestant confidently says it's Texas, he doesn't get the point just because he had an answer. We both get 0 points.
Hey, that's my laptop. Don't touch that. Put that back.
What are you doing with that?
Hey!
Yeah, don't put that.
No!
Chunky.
Tell him to stop!
Don't break his laptop. That's expensive.
Thank you.
No! Just say!
Okay, the atheist, the reason why you might have a hard time sometimes with them is because they will always resort to science as their answer. That's the thing. So, how do you know that your belief is right? Oh, because unless I see it scientifically, then I know it's true.
The Apostle Paul makes a claim about Jesus. He says that all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge are hidden in Jesus Christ. You want wisdom? You want knowledge? You need to find them ultimately in Jesus Christ. Now stop and think about the implications of that claim. You want wisdom and knowledge about ethics? It's only found in Jesus Christ. They're hidden in Him. You want wisdom and knowledge about art? It's only in Jesus Christ. You don't have a basis, by the way, for art without Jesus Christ. Do you know that? There's no basis for language. There's no basis for poetry without Jesus Christ. There's no basis for science without Jesus Christ. There's no basis for beauty, truth, goodness without Jesus Christ. If you want to know with certainty, you have to have Jesus Christ as the foundation.
And if you're wondering how he demonstrates that in this sermon called How to Completely Refute Atheism,
God said so. Because God says,
if this claim was true, wouldn't all science and study of nature irrefutably lead back to Christ? But we'll get his thoughts on that in a bit.
What the general theory of relativity states is that because space and time don't exist without matter, if matter had a beginning, then time of necessity also must have had a beginning. Thus, the universe was not eternal, it was finite. And if it was finite, it must have had a creator.
That's a huge leap from it had a beginning to that means it has a creator.
But you got to realize this, science doesn't show all the truth. Just because it's science doesn't mean you get all the truth. Didn't you realize that? You might say, no, science, it does show all the truth. No, you can't.
It's very true that science doesn't know everything. That's kind of the whole point. Science is about finding the facts, not just making assumptions.
You know why they won't believe in God? So here's Christianity. We believe God exists. But why do we believe God exists? Well, from science, what we could argue is probably the laws of thermodynamics. We can argue the complexity of what we study, that it cannot be by evolution. There had to be intelligent design behind it. We can argue that way. But here's the thing, is that God, he cannot be tested, experimented with. Because why? God is outside of the physical bounds of the universe.
So if God works outside of science and is untestable, then that means he doesn't interact with the world, right? If he interacted with prophets and miracle workers, we could test those claims. If he answered prayers, we could test those claims. So what he's arguing for is a form of deism, where God exists, but just as the creator of the universe, the first mover, and then he stepped back and just let the universe do its thing.
Explanation to the universe, but it looks like the universe had a transcendent cause. Because if all space, time, matter, energy began, then anything within space and time cannot have been the cause of that beginning. And actually, in discussing that type of a question, one time in a small group in this Boundaries of Science course, one of the students in the group later said to the whole class, this convinced him to depart from atheism and that there must be some sort of a higher power. You know, he wasn't sure what it was yet, but just thinking of some of the questions can in fact have a ramification that affects our worldview.
This is the ultimate God of the gaps. I don't understand, therefore Christian God did it. Just because we don't know what started it doesn't mean it was your God.
Tide goes in, tide goes out. Never a miscommunication. You can't explain that.
Fucking magnets, how do they work?
Either no one created something out of nothing, which is the atheistic view, or someone created something out of nothing, which is the theistic view. Now, my question last night was this: which view is more reasonable? That no one created something out of nothing, or that someone created something out of nothing? It's got to be someone, right?
Why does it have to be someone and not something? And why is that someone your God? Also, here's a little thought for you. What is nothing? Have we demonstrated that there has ever been a nothing? The universe is very large, and yet everywhere you look, there is something. As Victor Hugo said in Les Miserables, there is no such thing as nothingness, and zero does not exist. Everything is something. Nothing is nothing. But they always say that. They always say you can't make a universe out of nothing when the concept of nothing has yet to be observed.
And so, if there's a beginning, that means somebody must have began it.
Again, somebody is a big stretch.
That must mean there's a prime mover, a causeless cause, as Thomas Aquinas talked about. Be that as it may, all I'm trying to encourage you to understand is that science, the more deeply you delve into it, the more it proves the complexity of a creator, so much so that, in my opinion, it's almost absurd to believe anything different.
It's absurd to believe anything different? All you've shown is that the universe began and that it's complex. That doesn't show that your God had anything to do with it, or a God had anything to do with it, or a creator had anything to do with it.
Stephen Hawking said, and I quote, he said, "Because there are laws, such as gravity, the universe can and will create itself from nothing." That's stupid. Matter cannot be created or destroyed. So by default, their worldview violates the very first law of thermodynamics.
Wow, that's super ableist and disgusting. Thank you, Matt Powell. Also, this is coming from a guy who believed they hunted pterosaurs in the Civil War. He believed that this photo was legit and thought it proved that dinosaurs didn't go extinct when they thought they went extinct.
I believe if we study history, the Confederates were able to shoot pterodactyls, back in the Civil War, and they spread these things out. Anybody can look it up online. They spread these things out, and this is a historical fact.
This photo was created for a science fiction show in the year 2000.
All right, it's coming through.
Derek, this is impossible.
That's what they said about the coelacanth.
What's that?
It's this fish that everybody thought was extinct, but it isn't. And it's about to be blown out of the water by this. What, a pterodactyl, man? A pteranodon, actually. They're much bigger. Hold on, Derek. This whole Civil War thing could just be a hoax.
when it comes to the subject of your ego, I'm Stephen fucking Hawkinson.
Never mind. So we've all got our talking points, but I want you to struggle to be as sincere with yourself as you can right now. Doesn't it bother you a little bit that when we come to talk about the origins of the universe, and if there's a multiverse, the origin of that too, that the only real options you've got besides God is a past infinite universe, which is impossible, or the universe coming to exist uncaused out of nothing, or something far less clear than even those? It seems that for any worldview that includes atheism, there's a massive blind spot when it comes to the origin of the universe. And all the attempts to try and circumvent that problem seem desperate and at least far less likely than theism.
Again, we're on a game show. The host asks, what year did the movie Independence Day come out? Now imagine for this scenario that I don't know that it's 1996, which it obviously is 1996. The other contestant buzzes in and says 1776. Well, I didn't buzz in because in this scenario, unlike real life, I didn't know that it was 1996. The 1776 person gets as many points as I do, which is 0, because neither of us had the right answer, which of course you all know is 1996.
Rebecca, can I have half your points? No. Can I have 1 point? What? No. I want to give you 1 point. No. You're a bad person.
I'm okay admitting that I don't know how the universe began. I don't need to believe an answer just because it's an answer, especially if there is no evidence for it.
Science cannot prove love, for example. It can't prove the emotion of love. Maybe it could work on the workings of the body and test the hormones and all that, but it can't prove true, genuine love.
Romantic love can be explained by our biological need to reproduce or feel safe or warm. We love our children because we want to protect our lineage. We have friends because when we lived in tribes, we were safer if we had people we could trust to protect us, people we trusted to go hunting with us, to gather with us, to share our resources. Love is awesome, but it's a very easy thing to explain scientifically. We are alive because our ancestors had love, at least for their own tribe and their own family.
You can't even prove the number 3 as well, you gotta understand. The number 3 is something that we conjured up and put up with.
I quit. I quit. I quit. I quit, Mr. White.
Atheism itself cannot give us an account that justifies reason itself.
Reason will prevail!
Oh, yeah. We decided also that we would say reason will prevail every time someone
Reason
says...
will prevail!
You don't have to say it right now because I'm just explaining to Frank that reason will prevail.
Reason will prevail!
So Darwin once said, the horrid doubt always arises whether the conviction of man's minds, which have evolved from the monkeys, are at all trustworthy. Would anyone trust the conclusion of a monkey's mind? Now, what is he saying? If this naturalistic Darwinian story is true, then our brains evolved not to discover truth, but simply to survive. And you can survive on false beliefs if you just get your body in the right place at the right time.
The ironing is delicious. The word is irony. Huh?
So what was his point? Darwin's saying, if this blind evolutionary story is true, it undermines our rational faculties, meaning if Darwinism is true, we don't have any basis for reasonably concluding that Darwinism is true. It's like a snake that eats its own tail. So, ironically, if atheism is true, it undermines any confidence we can have in our reasoning faculties because they're a result of a blind, purposeless, immaterial process.
He's kind of right here, actually. There is a reason optical illusions exist. There is a reason we can get scared by things that can't hurt us. There are ways evolution has affected the way we think, and it makes it harder for us to think logically, and it makes it harder for us to change our minds based on new information. And that is precisely why the scientific method was created. That's why things like peer-review studies exist. That's why science is always challenged. The reason we can discover things and study things is precisely because we saw our own limitations and worked out ways to get past those limitations.
So, To suggest that all of this complexity of activity is the result of fortuitous circumstance, happenstance, that's pretty absurd to me. Are you tracking with me on that? I mean, watch this. This is gnarly. A single DNA molecule, just take one dinky microscopic DNA molecule. Remember, DNA, RNA, building block for all of life. One single, you can't miss this, one single molecule of DNA carries the same amount of info as an encyclopedia volume or a massive bulky dictionary. That's just one DNA cell. Oh no, it just happened accidentally.
Who said it was an accident? Evolution's not an accident. DNA also has information that is passed along that isn't used, or information that we need other information to work around that information. Why would a designer put all that useless information in there? Why wouldn't they use that space more wisely?
Is it just me, or does the evolutionary story keep changing?
Ready? You know what science can't even prove? Science cannot even prove itself. Science. Didn't you know that? No, what is this? This guy is stupid. He doesn't know what he's talking about. No, you got to understand this. Science cannot even prove itself at times. Why do you think, look, if you're a scientist who's done so many experiments, you can even agree with me on this one. Why do you call it scientific theory? You know why you call it a scientific theory? Because you realize no matter how many times you may have developed the hypothesis and experimented and tested it, you can be wrong later on.
Whenever they use the word theory like this, it really shows me how little they actually care about the truth. No matter how many times they have been told that the word theory in science is different from how it is colloquially used, they always come back to the classic, it's just a theory.
You might say, no, I don't believe that. Then you're not a scientist. You must be a dummy. No offense. Okay, every scientist knows that. Why is that? Because they are always open to the possibility out there that their experiment or their hypothesis can be wrong.
That part is true, and that's a good thing. You want to retest things. You want to see if something's wrong. That's the point of science.
And we learned that just like style can go out of fashion, the popular ape men theories and their fossils do the same thing. And while their theory keeps changing, God's word never does.
Kind of makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really makes you think. It makes you think how funny it is that people still think like Matt from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Is Aristotle thought to be the smartest man on the planet. He believed that the Earth was the center of the universe, and everybody believed him because he was so smart. Until another smartest guy came around, Galileo, and he disproved that theory, making Aristotle and everybody else on Earth look like a bitch. Of course, Galileo then thought comets were an optical illusion, and there's no way that the moon could cause the ocean's tides. Everybody believed that because he was so smart. He was also wrong, making him and everyone else on Earth look like a bitch again.
Saying that you never change your mind, so you must be right, is about the opposite of what critical thinking is.
You think that when Einstein gets it wrong, you won't get it wrong? Wow, some guy you are. So you see right here, science cannot even prove itself. You'd be surprised.
But again, the big question, if God is real and actively interacts with his people, put the universe in motion, created life, then wouldn't science just lead back to him?
If you get on the unbeliever's train, and it's going their direction, if you get on their train, no matter how hard you run to the other side of the train, you're going to their destination. And if as Christians, we pretend neutrality, we say, well, maybe Jesus Christ isn't who he claims to be. Maybe the Word of God isn't what it claims to be. Maybe there really is no God. Let's see where the evidence takes us. If we behave in that way, reason in that way, we lose the entire basis of knowledge, first and foremost, but we are going to end up reasoning like the unbeliever. Don't answer the fool according to their folly. That is to say, in this context, firm up your commitments to Jesus Christ. Sounds a lot like 1 Peter 3:15. Sanctify Christ as Lord in your hearts. Remember that no knowledge is possible without Jesus Christ. Remember,
hot dogs are the best food there is. If you try other foods to compare, then you can't come to that same conclusion because hot dogs are the best food, so you should only eat hot dogs. If you eat something else, you are betraying hot dogs and can't fully understand how good they are.
You're dressed like a hot dog.
So is that guy. Oh no.
When you say this thing is true and is the source of all truth, but also never question or test it, then all you are saying is, I want to believe it, so I believe it, regardless of whether it's true. That's what all this is. This isn't about wanting the right answer. It's about convincing yourself that you already have the right answer. It's about keeping people in the in-group.
To me, it's not enough that you know about an intelligent designer. I remember years ago, as I think a teenager, I saw this movie with Ben Stein that was talking about intelligent design. And I'm like, that's great, but it's not far enough. We need an intimate knowledge, not just head knowledge. Oh, I guess God must be out there in outer space, or in my biology, the DNA shows a creator. But there's another kind of knowledge. It's the knowledge of his grace, of his goodness, of his love, of his companionship, of his friendship. That, my friends, is the best knowledge of all.
Sometimes saying, I don't know, is perfectly okay.
I like that. I don't know. That's nice.
Life isn't about having all the answers, and it's certainly not about believing any answer that comes your way. Especially when that answer also asks you to give them 10% of your income. Question everything, admit when you don't know something, and be kind. Kindness is something we all need way more of right now. Thanks, everybody, for making it this far. Thanks for being wonderful, wonderful people. And if you know somebody who will benefit from this, send it their way. Thanks again. You are all on my mind. Bye.
Work, Sky Moon.